Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling page. Today we're going to be doing some abstract mark making in one of my large journals and using some stencils to draw a figure. So I'm starting off on a page which I've really liked. It's been in my journal for ages, but I've never known what to do with it. And I didn't want to cover it over with anything because I've liked the colours in the background. So I decided that I would be brave and put out a range of different colours, and I thought I'd paint some marks onto the background. Now, particularly if you've followed this channel before, I'm sure you have seen that I do a lot of mark making in my work. I tend to, when I'm doing it, work with Posca paint pens because I've got a little bit more control over that. So I challenged myself in this one to actually try and make some marks using a paintbrush and paint. And it was a good challenge to give myself. I enjoyed it, and it actually made me use a few of my paintbrushes which I've never used. I tend to sort of go for one or two paintbrushes. I don't tend to swap sizes very often, so by doing this and choosing different paintbrushes, it gave me different sizes and different brush types that I could use to get different marks. You can see I've got my Use It Up journal sitting next to me as well, so instead of wasting paint that I've still got my paintbrush, I decided to sort of kill two birds with one stone and use up the extra paint into my journal page as well. So it was lots of fun. I really loved the just the simple of putting that turquoise on the page, and that pop of turquoise with the warm colours in the background really stood out. The paints that I'm using are from Paper Artsy. I recently did a class with Tracy Scott, and I've been putting off buying their paints because I hadn't had a play with them, and then I had a play with them, and now I've got quite a lot of paints in my my stash. So they're beautiful, vibrant colours. The majority of them are, they range from translucent through to opaque colours, and I've got a bit of a range of both. Most of them are opaque colours, but obviously sort of the yellows and reds are more translucent. But they work really, really well, and one of the reasons that I did buy them was so I found that you can use colour pencil over the top of them, which is something you can't do with the Dina Wakley, or I can't do as well with the Dina Wakley paints, which if you followed this channel, you know are my absolute all-time favourites. So it's nice having materials that you can do something different with. So once I've done some painty art marks, I've now gone in with a stencil and I'm just adding some more. So I'm just mixing up some colours. I mixed the white into the yellow to make it a little bit more opaque. And again, you can see I've got paint left on my sponge, so I'm going in and using it on my journal and just being a bit random with what I'm doing, and obviously not cleaning my stencils afterwards because I never clean my stencils, let's face it. So these are all sort of stencils I've had sitting near my desk for a while. Some of my favourites that I just, pull out every so often. I like them because they're not whole pictures and you can just use parts of them. You don't need to use a whole stencil. So you can see me really trying to use up as much paint as possible onto those pages. So there's no waste, which, why not? You pay for the paint, you can't put it back in the pot, so you might as well make something nice of it. And you can see there that I've got two pages for the price of one. They're both fairly similar, and I can do something interesting with them both. Now, the page you can see I'm working on is in my large Dina Wakley journal, which is why it's kind of off screen. It is quite a huge journal. I think it's 14 inches high. So there's a lot of real estate there to play with, which I've really struggled with. While I love doing double pages, I struggle with it being so tall. I don't know whether that's because I'm short and my arm has to extend too long to use it, or the space I'm working in, but I'm forcing myself to use it. And the good thing about it is it's the same as a medium-sized journal, so it's got the same paper, so I'm comfortable with it. It's just the size that's putting me out of my comfort zone somewhat. You can see on the other side too, I've got an abstract painting, and I have cut a hole in the burlap, so I wanted to have something on this page that I could see through the burlap, and you know, so it kind of worked with it. So that's why I chose the colours I did in the palettes, because it picks up the colours that were used on the other side. So this is a stencil from Scrap FX called Vogue Girl, I think, and I just lightly stenciled it out, and now I'm going in with paint from Paper Artsy called Vintage Lace, I think, or Tattered Lace, and I'm just painting it in. So the reason for this is I knew I wanted to use colour pencil over the top of this, and I needed to block out some of that busy background so I could actually do that. And this paint has a really good tooth to it, so I can colour over it. I'm going in with some of the black gesso from Dina Wakley, which is a really, really matte gesso, and just gives a really beautiful colour coverage over it. So you can see those beautiful lines, again kind of emulating the lines on the other page, which I really liked. So it's quite a sharp image with this really funky background. Now some of it bled through, so I'm just using a white marker to go in and fix up some highlights that didn't quite come out the way I wanted them to, and balance it up. You can see I also sort of extended the body down to the page because I wanted to ground my image. She wouldn't have looked right if I just had her floating. And because I had the black image, I wanted to put a little bit of black into the background. So this is a mark making stamp set from Tim Holtz from 2 years ago, I think. And I'm just adding in some black, stamping, being a bit rough and ready with it, and getting that grungy, spotty look. Again, kind of trying to emulate the page next to or through the burlap. And because I had leftover gesso, I put it into my use it up journal. So again, that's another page I can use on another day. So these are the Primacolor pencils, and I'm just going in and colouring in my image. Now I've been doing this an awful lot recently. So I've got a kind of go-to palette of colours that I've been using that I know work for me. They're different for each person. I like using purples for my highlights. I don't know why, I'm just drawn to it. And even when I used to paint in highlights, I used to use purples, so it's obviously something hot-wired in me. So I start off with the deepest purple colour and then go into lighter colours through to some pinks and then some peachy skin coloured tones in the middle. And anywhere that's sort of shadowed is obviously the darkest colour, and then obviously the highlights are in the lightest tone. And just sort of going in and blending the colours together. Now you'll notice I didn't paint right down to the edge of the page, but I painted down enough that you got the impression of what was going on. Now I'm going back and blending in some of the colours together, and you can see particularly around the eye how those sort of blended together. So just by going back with a lighter colour and working them together, it helps you get a smoother image. The thing I'm really loving about these paints to do this with is when I've tried using colour pencil in the past over paints, it's sort of chipped them away or it's rubbed away, and I've been left with patches to the background that I've had to fix up and put some other stuff over it, and it's looked really, really dodgy. So having a paint that you can do this, that has enough tooth that you can put the colour pencil over, has been a game changer for me anyway. I've really enjoyed using, I suppose, it's the old adage, use the correct tool for the correct job, and it's always going to be a little bit easier. So now I decided I wanted to have a quote on my page, and I wanted to be a script quote, but I really, really struggle with doing script writing, and I couldn't find a pen that would work the way I wanted it to. So it was a bit rough and ready, but I think it kind of blended in with the grungy background in the end. So I went back sort of and fixed up a few bits of my downstrokes to make some of them a bit thicker. The first pen I used was, I think both of the pens actually are the Jane Davenport Ultimate pen and her licensed quill pens, which have both got brush tips on them. You did see me write it out in in pencil first, just to give an idea of where I was going to be writing and the sort of what it would kind of look like on the page. I like having that model there, particularly if I'm doing something I'm not comfortable with, like script writing. If it was block writing, it wouldn't be an issue so much, but for me, I need to sort of have a bit of a guide. If you really struggle with lettering and so on, going to Pinterest and getting a quote from Pinterest where you can actually see the quotes written in a different font type can really help. I know I find that's really helpful as I use it as a model. This is the final page. I had lots of fun doing it. I liked particularly doing the mark making in the background. That was the main thing for me. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye for now.